we had received some intelligence on Osama bin Laden's location. And what that provided me was a 8-digit grid location, good to 10 meters of where bin Laden is at a certain point in time. That was the best intelligence we had on bin Laden's location, probably ever.
Next, he hears that the Pashtun army, their Afghan allies, has encircled bin Laden.
We even actually got a call from one of his subordinates that they believed they had bin Laden surrounded. We mounted the cavalry and took off.
As Fury races to the front with 6 men from Delta Force, the 3-man Jackal team comes under heavy fire. They take refuge as their Afghan allies fire in panic. Within minutes, the Air Force controller calls in an airstrike.
5, 8, 4, 5, Roger, get over.
But as one machine gun is silenced, another one opens up from a different position.
The battle wasn't over. They were still in a firefight, and they continued to move forward and tried to bring in the aircraft, which I thought was suicidal. Pilots that were on radio with them, and they could see the heat sources, and they could see how close they were to Al-Qaeda, and they knew they couldn't drop their bomb so close. But the Admiral was calling in saying, put it right here on top of us, and thankfully didn't put it right on top of them. Otherwise they wouldn't be here today. I thought that was pretty heroic.
As night falls and the bullets rain down, the Pashtun army flees, leaving the 3 men to fend for themselves.
It became a little hairy when they got left behind. Getting mortared and shot at with rockets and RPGs.
As Fury heads to bin Laden's location, he receives a mayday call from his men.
They had sent the code word, warpath, 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 that they had been left behind enemy lines.
Knowing that his men would only call for help if in extreme danger, Fury is left with a terrible dilemma.
I basically had a decision as the ground force commander. Do we go after bin Laden, or do we go after the 3 Americans?
4 hours into the battle, Fury decides to send in a team to rescue the Americans. As the team treks into the mountains, news comes in that the heavy air bombing of Al-Qaeda positions is working, that bin Laden seems ready to give up.
He had apologized to his fighters. He specifically gave them the authority to surrender if they had the means available to them. He spoke of the lack of support from all Muslim nations for the great battle in Tora Bora, from the apostate nations, he called them.
This information, coupled with learning that the Jackal team was rescued, is the news everyone has been waiting for years. The U.S. is finally poised for success. Everything appears to be going to plan. But what General Zaman, the Pashtun warlord, does next stuns the Delta commander and is a turning point in the battle.
The word that was sent to me was Zaman had negotiated a ceasefire with Al-Qaeda, and Al-Qaeda was going to surrender, including Osama bin Laden, and they just needed time to get their things together.
But despite Fury's misgivings, the Afghan general declares victory and calls off his troops while he negotiates with Al-Qaeda. It's a fatal mistake.
As soon as I heard that, of course, I was very, very angry. I got on the comms and stated, call in airstrikes immediately. Break the ceasefire. There is no ceasefire. Pass a message to both the Afghans and Al-Qaeda that we're here to do only one thing, and that is to kill them all.
But the Afghan warlords refuse to fight during the 16-hour ceasefire. As they negotiate the terms with an Al-Qaeda commander, Osama bin Laden escapes. Fury will never get another chance to kill bin Laden. His decision to save his men instead of pursuing him is one that will haunt him forever.
I certainly question it now, 8, 9 years later. There's no doubt about it. Could bin Laden have been 500 yards away? Could he have been lying there wounded? Could we have gotten the drop on him? You'll never know.
The U.S. has gotten the closest they ever had to getting their man. But Osama bin Laden escapes, reportedly into neighboring Pakistan.
We took our eye off the ball at the absolutely critical moment. And Tommy Franks and Don Rumsfeld have yet to really give us a satisfactory explanation for why they weren't willing to put in a few more troops in order to keep that from happening.
A combination of unreliable allies, hostile terrain, and fears about the loss of American lives had thwarted the plan. The next approach will seek to remove these factors from the equation. After the Battle of Tora Bora in December 2001, Osama bin Laden managed to escape over the mountains into Pakistan. To find him, the CIA needs to pass into fiercely inhospitable tribal areas and over difficult terrain.
8, 7, 6.
To continue the hunt, they turn to a little-known weapon in their armory, the unmanned Predator drone.
The Predator drone has given us an amazing eye in the sky, able to find an individual from a mile away using a high-powered camera. It's in fact so capable that not only can it pick out that character, but figure out if the AK-47 they're carrying has been fired within the last 30 minutes or not by the heat coming off the barrel. A powerful technology.
The General Atomics MQ-1 Predator cost $4.5 million each. At 27 feet long, it's packed with the latest high-tech equipment available. It's flown by an onboard computer controlled by personnel on the ground. Its engine can keep it airborne for up to 40 hours. It has a camera that can identify a face from 3 miles high, and it carries 2 Hellfire missiles. The Predator was originally built in 1995 for spying only. Unarmed, it was used in Bosnia, Serbia, and Iraq. Its infrared camera, with enhanced digital zoom, is capable of spotting targets and identifying faces from 16,000 feet in the air. These images are beamed back to the ground operator in real time and with extreme clarity.
What the Predator uses in terms of its surveillance capability is a camera gimbal that has both electro-optical and infrared imaging. And so that allows you a day-night capability. It can do both moving images and stills. And that imagery can be beamed off that Predator back down to the Predator's operators here in the United States.
The drone is controlled by 2 people on the ground at bases in the United States. One pilots the aircraft, the other controls the camera. Images are analyzed 24/7 for bin Laden and other high-value Al-Qaeda targets. The Predator is powered by a simple and efficient turbocharged engine, which allows the plane to travel slowly over 2,000 miles on a single journey. It's not quiet, but flies at heights where it can shoot a missile before being detected by the target.
It flies at about a medium altitude, maybe 20,000 feet. And one of the big advantages of the Predator is it can loiter for a really long time, like 40 hours before it needs to go down.
In September 2000, an unarmed Predator spots bin Laden. A cruise missile strike is immediately sought, but the Al-Qaeda leader disappears before it can be authorized.
We saw bin Laden there, but what were we able to do about it? And this was frustrating, and a plan was developed to arm these Predators so that you could act upon it.
So in 2001, the Predator is finally armed with 2 Hellfire missiles, which were originally used to destroy tanks.
Hellfires are laser guided, so either the Predator itself, another aircraft, or someone on the ground can use a laser designator to lock onto the target.
Laser. Go ahead and arm.
Then the Hellfire launches, and it can use its laser guidance system to follow directly down to hit that target.
Oh, nicely done, sir. Nicely done.
It's not until February 2002 that the CIA gets another chance at bin Laden. An armed drone beams images back to the CIA's base in Langley that put analysts there on high alert.
There was one instance in which we used a Predator missile to go after a separate target. And in reviewing the films, they thought that bin Laden had been with the target we were after.
They could see the figures through the video camera. One of them was distinctly taller than the others, just like bin Laden is rumored to be.
Convinced they have bin Laden in their sights, the CIA takes decisive action. For the first time since his last sighting in Tora Bora, they think they finally got their man.
They found, okay, we've got him. And so they authorized the strike.
Bombs away. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Once the hit is confirmed, the CIA send a forensics team to Afghanistan to get proof of the dead man's identity.
They went through the process of recovery and examining the remains.
But when the DNA samples are analyzed against a bin Laden family members, they don't have a match.
Turns out it was an Afghan villager who was unlucky enough to just look like bin Laden. Actually, turns out his name is Daraz Khan. He was known in his village as Tall Man. He was tall.
Despite the mistake, the Predator and its bigger, more heavily armed successor, the Reaper, have had success at targeting high-value al-Qaeda leaders, including Qaed Senyan al-Harthi, thought to be responsible for the bombing of the USS Cole. As the drones continue to hunt for bin Laden, the military unveils its next plan. It's the biggest and most audacious to date, one that will use conventional forces, Afghan allies, and airstrikes in an all-out attack. In the spring of 2002, the CIA learns that some 1,000 al-Qaeda fighters are massing in the Shah-e-Kot Valley, the mountainous border region of Afghanistan. This Delta Force commander uses the name Dalton Fury to hide his identity.
There were some speculation that Osama bin Laden and his senior al-Qaeda lieutenants were in the Shah-e-Kot Valley, being protected by the Taliban and Arabs and Chechens that had come in.
The evidence, a radio frequency used by bin Laden, is detected in the valley.
Some intercepts were made of the same radio channel that was used in Tora Bora. Some guys put two and two together. They're still using the same frequency.
After failing to capture bin Laden in Tora Bora, the military is resolute about not making the same mistake. They devise a plan called Operation Anaconda, involving 2,000 coalition troops. Most significantly, for the first time since the hunt began, the U.S. military will use regular soldiers alongside 1,000 of their Afghan allies in an all-out attack.
These were the highest altitudes that U.S. forces had ever fought at. The terrain was inhospitable, often quite inaccessible, and extremely difficult conditions for conducting a campaign.
The Shah-e-Kot Valley is located in the southeastern corner of Afghanistan. The plan involves using hired Afghan fighters to attack from the west, while coalition forces attack from the south. U.S. soldiers will occupy 7 positions in the east, blocking off the rebels' paths of retreat. Special forces will be on the high ground, calling in airstrikes.
My involvement was to live on the frontier, conduct reconnaissance missions, figure things out, and find Al-Qaeda and UBL.
The battle begins at dawn on Saturday, March 2nd. A 20-minute aerial bombardment precedes the arrival of the coalition troops. 400 U.S. soldiers are transported to the 7 landing sites. What they don't know is that they are about to fly into a trap, an al-Qaeda kill zone. The U.S. troops are sitting ducks.